What's going on, everyone? I'm very excited for the conversation today. It should be a fun one. Talking about the state of face-to-face sales and what are the trends that we're seeing? What are the things in the industry where we feel like this is where we're going? What's going to happen? Actually, got some pretty cool research that we pulled from our friends at Corporate Visions as well too, around just trends and data and things that they're seeing as well too. So big shout out to everyone joining right now. I'll let people just kind of join as they come in. What I want to hear is, I'd love to hear from people, in the comments, etc. Again, just kind of let me know if there's things that are top of mind for you. Is your company pushing for more face-to-face? I think I'm also very interested in that. Is like, are we at the time now? Because I was like, when the pandemic first started, we had that period where we kind of started to get out of it a little bit in 2020. And, everyone was like, oh, we got to get back on the road. Got to get back on the road and, got to get out there. And then, we kind of got back out there and then it kind of went back into pandemic mode. So I think for a lot of people, that's a really important, component to think about. So I'm always curious, if you're joining us now live, are you going back on the road? I actually had a breakfast meeting on December 30th in Scottsdale, but I was there for like family reasons too. So, but it wasn't like I set a trip to go as well, but it's interesting. So I want to talk a little bit about state of face-to-face sales, trends that we're seeing, etc. And we'll hop into it. So first, I want to talk about virtual sales, right? So let's talk a little bit about virtual sales, what goes into best-in-class virtual selling, let's call it, and what are some of the trends that we saw in 2021 and things that we're looking for in 2022. All right, first trend, again, around virtual selling, right? Macro trend is that virtual selling will continue to be the dominant force in 2022. It's going to be. I think we're going to have more trade shows. I think we're going to have more things and ways to interact, but I don't feel like at scale, more and more people will not be okay with necessarily, joining face-to-face, or candidly wanting a salesperson to come face-to-face. I think that's a lot of it. It's interesting. Back in the parts of the pandemic, salespeople, and we did a survey on this, salespeople were ready to get back in the field. Buyers were not ready to meet with salespeople. And I still think that that's going to perpetuate, especially if you think about the coast, like California, New York, Washington State, et cetera, where, people, I live in Austin, in Austin, Texas. And here, it's pretty much getting back to normal. But long story short, I think a lot of other places it won't. So virtual selling, I think, could continue to be the dominant force in 2022. And so therefore, your field teams getting better and better at virtual selling. And I'm going to talk about a few ways to do that and go in from there. So Mark said, staff definitely wants to meet people. Yeah, that's right. And I think, Mark, too, the other piece is it's better for both people's use of time to potentially do a virtual meeting first, right? Because you need to make sure, hey, like there's something here too. So anyway, that's a big trend that we're seeing in the macro, is that virtual selling is going to be here to stay. There's no thought that all of a sudden face-to-face is going to come back magically. Now, with that being said, first big trend in virtual selling, I'll just go ahead and put it in here, is acting like it's face-to-face. This is the big one. Trend one, virtual selling. Trend number one, virtual. And obviously, I'm going to talk about state of face-to-face too. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Is that I mean that for many people, so again, what you see here, look, I'm using my hands. I'm talking. I'm just so you know, I've got a DSLR camera right here. And a lot of people, they do this, right? So I'm like looking at you here. They don't have their camera at the appropriate angles. They don't have the lighting, etc. I've got a false light over here too. So I've got a DSLR false light. Getting a professional camera, getting professional lighting. And by the way, this is like $12, not $15 on Amazon. So this isn't like some crazy whatever it is. It is your job as a salesperson, the same way as you're expected to show up to a meeting looking professional, or like whatever's appropriate. Maybe for your audience, wearing a hoodie is the right view. But we have got to start to treat virtual selling conversations with the same regard for quality as we do in person. Like right now, everyone's doing the same Zoom, the same boring thing. They got their same crappy camera. If you want to close more deals virtually, if you want to have better engagement, the things that you would do to show up prepared and professional for a face-to-face, that's what you need to start to do for virtual. So anyway, hold on one second. Trying to pull up LinkedIn again. Right, there we go. Boom. All right, got my comments back up. I just wanted to get the comments up. Okay, so that's number one. Number one trend in virtual selling is show up. The other thing I want you to think about, as some of the things I'm talking about too, acting like it's face to face. What else do you do face to face that you might not do as good of a job of today? Energy, enthusiasm, smiling, really acting as if your virtual meeting's a face to face, right? Every other person is sat through, you by the time that a salesperson gets to that person, they've already had eight Zoom meetings that day. And so again, think about those things that you would do when you went face to face. You'd prepare, you'd have your stuff written down, right? You'd have your notes, you'd prepare, you'd think through it. You'd think through, how do I want to interact with this person, right? So I can't control what they're doing. I can only control my own energy, my own emotion, my own excitement level. And so for a lot of you out there, I want you to think about trend one is, in your virtual world, are you acting the same way that you did when it was face to face? That's it. If you just start doing that, you are going to see an immediate uptick in how people respond to you. If you can just start to bring that same level of energy, same level of preparedness, same level of professionalism, get a better camera. Stop not investing. Get a better microphone. Get better lighting. Don't you want to show up like A++ versus showing up in like a wrinkled suit, right? Like you wouldn't show up in a wrinkled suit, but why do you care that you look grainy, but you look like crap on the camera, right? So showing up that's a good one. Showing up with a grainy camera is the same thing as showing up to a face-to-face meeting with a wrinkled suit, okay? You wouldn't show up to a face-to-face with wrinkled suit. Why do you show up looking like a schlep on your camera? So trend number one, acting like it's face-to-face. All right, trend number two for virtual selling. Trend two, I'm just going to type it. I'm typing this into the comments too. Trend two is follow up engagement. All right. So this is my next big one that I want all of you to think about around virtual selling in particular. Okay. What happens typically now, before and after? Maybe there's a little bit of an email. Afterwards, I send a recap email, etc. Well, again, you used to maybe have a follow-up meeting, or you used to be able to, you went into their office, and so you go to like 2 or 3 different offices sometimes with people. You go here to the CTO. And so when you think about follow-up throughout the sales process, there's 2 things that I want to bring up. The first is the how. I saw Tyler Meckes is in here. What's up, Tyler? I'm actually getting ready to give Vidyard a shout out, so you joined at the right time. So how you follow up and who you follow up with. Okay. These are the things that I'm talking about here. Okay. It's who are you following up with? Okay. How. Use video. So there's an amazing tool. Tyler, shout out to the team at Vidyard. We use Vidyard, right? Where imagine instead of me sending a recap, right? And again, like same thing, like if I was face to face, maybe I'd pop in your office. Oh, hey, it was good catching up last week, or whatever it is. If I'm meeting with someone else, use video. Hey, everyone, we really enjoyed the conversation. Tim, we really enjoyed this with your group. Rachel, this with your group. Mike, this with your group, right? And think about, can you create a better experience for them? So then when the how you follow up isn't just another email, how you follow up is also a series of like a video, right? Now let's take it to the next level. On the enterprise level, you should send 3 or 4 different videos, right? The same way, if you're like, all right, IT, really enjoyed it. Here's what's up. Here's next steps. Hey, this group here, really enjoyed it. Here's what's up. Here's next steps. This takes an extra 30 minutes. I'm sorry, not even 30 minutes. Sorry, an extra hour, second. And probably an hour for 3 or 4 videos. Let me just stay focused for a second, right? So I want you to think about that. Can you follow up with videos? Can you follow up with, and again, I like this here. Vipul just shared this. the word here he used is relevant. So imagine I say, oh, I also know you're in industrial manufacturing. Here's a video and something relevant, and make it from a third party. So again, we have to think about, so that the how we engage has to, in virtual selling, has to change. We have to stop being so static. We have to stop being so email. That you're not going to stand out. Okay. So again, when you're in the meetings, you're bringing energy, you're doing those things. When you're outside the energy or the video, use video to do the same thing and present that level of energy to get them excited, to be differentiated, to stand out. All of those things are wildly important, right? As you think about this part of it. So that's what I want you all to think about for that piece, right? That's how you're showing up. Then there's the who. And so I mentioned this briefly. It used to be, okay, and I'm sure a lot of you remember this in face-to-face, right? So you'd go into a corporate compound in Silicon Valley or Minnesota or Dallas or wherever you sold into, and you'd kind of serendipitously like, oh, let me go to Ryan's. You kind of would like work the office a little bit, or maybe, you're there visiting them again. And from there, think about how you would just run into people or create that. Now it's more important than ever that you as a seller in the virtual selling world has to keep in touch with every point of contact. This is one of the biggest issues right now in the virtual selling environment. It used to be we'd kind of have a champion, but because we would be on site, because we would come and visit, they naturally would loop these people in. Well, when the whole world is via email, that becomes much more difficult. And it's much easier to like just not show up for a virtual meeting versus face-to-face, right? Like people no-show virtual meetings a lot more than they no-showed face-to-face meetings. So it's up to you, and this is my last kind of virtual selling trend. It's up to you to manage each stakeholder. And you should be having separate meetings with each individual group, and you become your own champion. You be your own champion, because again, in a virtual world, that your normal champion's got a lot of stuff going on. So again, think about that. Trend number 2 is the way that we follow up and engage. So that's how we show up. That's the videos that we send, a relevant case study. That's relevant, not random. I'm going to tell you right now, probably 9 out of 10 of you are not sending relevant case studies. You're sending what you think is relevant, but the reality is it's not very specific. And then number 2 is you need to make sure that you are running separate virtual sales processes with however many stakeholders there might be. So that's what I've got for virtual selling. So when we when we think about now things like trends in, let's call it outbound, or trends in being out in the field, right? I talk about outbound so much, I get it twisted sometimes. So what are some of like the big trends or things in face-to-face? Okay, so the next up, and so shout out to the team at Corporate Visions in particular for some of these data points. I'm gonna try to see if I can find the exact numbers. If not, I'm gonna give you all anecdotal, and I'm gonna find a link to this report. Pretty wild stuff. So what I really like about what Corporate Visions does in particular is Corporate Visions does a lot of neuro research. They literally, I kid you not, they put like these headsets on people that they're EKGs and track parts of people's brains that are active. So this isn't like Jake's opinion. I'm gonna see if I can. I'll dig in here and find if I can. I'll see if I can find this email real quick. So it's not just my opinion of what people are engaged with. It's just not my my idea, etc. Pretty wild stuff here. Let me just type in, see if I can find this for you real quick. There it is. There's Carmen. Oh, all right. I'm going to find it. If I can't find it right now, Becca on my team is out. Normally she would be helping me. But anyway, it's like virtual versus hybrid. Let me see if I can find a link from it. Oh, here we go. I found it. I knew if I just looked a little bit more here. Let me see if this worked. I'm going to share this link, but it redirected me. It's on the Corporate Visions website. I'm just going to share this link I've got. If anyone else wants to go and find it, and you want to be a trooper here. Oh, did my man find it? Look at Tyler. Heck yeah, of course you found it. All right. So what this talks about, if it's this one in particular, I want to make sure it is this webinar. That's the one, Tyler. Thank you. You're the man. I appreciate you. So what this webinar talked about that I thought was like somewhat mind-blowing is like, think of all the different ways we can meet. We can meet face-to-face. We can meet hybrid. One person's face-to-face, somebody's remote. We can meet fully virtual, or we can meet just via phone. Okay. And some of the findings from this was kind of bonkers, right? And I'll let people, if people want to take a guess right here, I'll let them do it. Out of those methods, face-to-face, virtual, hybrid, or phone, which method do you think people actually paid the absolute most attention? Does anyone have any guess? Out of those modalities, 100% face-to-face, 100% virtual, phone, and hybrid, where do you think people were the most engaged? And I'll wait a second here. I'll see if some people are brave and put down the numbers here. Let's see what people think here. I didn't guess it, but I almost guessed it. So we'll see if anyone has any guesses for this. All right, let's see. All right, there we go. Some people, obviously, I think my default. All right, phone. We got to vote for phone. I like that. Let's see what else. If anyone else is going to be brave, put their vote in there. All right. He has a brain next to his name too, so you know this guy's smart. So the answer was phone. Phone was the number one answer from the data. Again, they put these headsets on these people. They put headsets. They said phone the most. And I think it's because when you're on the phone, your brain has to work. Like if I'm in video, we learn we gather so much information via video that we don't realize that, like, just how much information we do gather. And so when you go and you can go look at the webinar, phone is where people like who were on that end of the call, the sales call, were most like their brain was firing the most, which I think is really interesting. Now, that doesn't say like, and if you then use phone, you're going to close more deals. That's not what I'm saying. But I think the thing about phone that sometimes we forget in video is when you're on the phone, you have to paint the picture. I mean, technically, if you're on video, you should paint the picture too, right? But too often, if it's on video, we're focusing on the video, we're focusing on here, blah, 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 all this other stuff. So phone was where people actually, like, the brain went the most. Okay, let's go to the flip side. Okay, which type of meeting type, video, face-to-face, or virtual, do you think people were the least engaged? Least engaged. I might be messing up the wording a little bit, so apologies. I don't have it right in front of me. But which type of meeting do you think people were least engaged? Right? Was it virtual, face-to-face, or hybrid, where you've got face-to-face and here you got a phone, you got the Zoom here, you got Johnny here. What do you think? Which meeting type were people least engaged? Face-to-face, virtual, hybrid. All right, let's try to get a couple of guesses here. All right, let's see if anyone's brave enough here. Some of those are left over from the last guess, so I'll let somebody else join in. Which meeting type? Someone put it in the comments. Give me a couple of guesses here on what you think people were least engaged with. Tyler just rewatched it, so I'm sure he can't. I don't know if he can. What do you call it? I'm going to try to find the link to the white paper too. Virtual, 2 bets for virtual. Nima and Max, thank you. I appreciate you doing that. Anybody else? Hybrid, says Blake. Face-to-face, says Alejandro. I think this is great that like we all kind of think it's, different options. Another hybrid. So the winner of least engaged is hybrid. So a couple of people got it. It looks like Sirdar, and I might be pronouncing it. Yep, Jim guessed it, hybrid. Hybrid. Our brain is just like, hey, okay, so there's like a person here, this person's here, and on the seller side, it's very difficult because the way that I got to create a virtual experience and the way I might create a face-to-face experience um, is interesting. And so these are just some things that I want you to think about here, and I'll shout out, give her a shout out. Her name, if you don't follow her, is Carmen Simon, and she is a neuroscientist, does a lot of work with Stanford University. There you go. Amazing search. All right, so there she is. Make sure to follow Carmen. So again, what does this tell you about face to face? Well, if people are going to be face to face, you don't want people virtually. Sounds crazy. Sounds weird. Not to say, I'm sure that there are some very specific use cases where, yes, you might want someone virtually. You might want, some decision maker. But high level, again, it's like if you got a group of people here and you got the Zoom that's over here, you're trying to create a connection here. That's getting, then they're looking at their boss or whatever it is. Just a lot going on, right? So, as we talked about here, a lot of you. So, what does that mean for the future of face to face? One, like I said this year, I think people are going to be face to face. I think a lot of people's face to face interactions this year is going to be events. I think, yes, Omicron is raging. Everyone should be being safe, should be very safe. But the thing I do believe events are going to continue to come back. That, if you're vaccinated or have a negative PCR test. So what I feel like is, therefore, a lot of your ability to follow up, to stay on top of people using some of the virtual selling techniques, I think are even more critical. Because even to me, even if you have a face-to-face one-to-one meeting with somebody, that's it. Alejandro nailed it. All this like tech issues, you're like, oh, I got to get my Zoom up. And then, you're in so hybrid, no go, right? So think about that. If a lot of us, the way that we're going to interact face to face is going to be at events, right? It's going to be about follow up. It's going to be about the things I talked about at the very beginning. When you follow up with someone, how about instead of sending them an email after you met them at an event, send them a personalized video? Hey, really enjoyed the conversation, Alejandro. Look forward to staying in touch. And going back to Virpil's thing, here's some couple of relevant details I thought would be interesting. Let's connect next week. So again, if you are going to meet with people at events, just think, how can you keep engaged? And then the other part is just understand that, even when you are going face to face, that still most of your sales process will be in this virtual environment. So again, the reason I talked at the very beginning about, virtual sales trends that I think we need to pay attention to, it's just as important for us to think about, even whenever we do go face to face, right? Using those techniques about being present, being top of mind, like being there, showing up, giving people an experience versus, just showing up and praying. So that's it. That's what we're seeing that's the kind of our 2022 state of face to face. That by some of the great data that the folks at Corporate Visions put out, by some of our own work with our clients in terms of working with them and their sales teams, we're seeing more and more organizations building out inside teams and, not investing in the field, right? So it's not that face-to-face isn't going to make a little bit of a comeback this year. It's that still virtual selling will be a big component of every seller's lives. So getting better at virtual selling, like I said in the beginning, investing in a camera and lighting and a background and spending $1,000 or whatever is going to be worth it, right? It's going to be worth it because it's the same way, like the way that we show up virtually, it's the same preparedness that we should be showing up with face to face. So that's what's up, everyone. That is our state of face to face. We're going to be doing Jake and Friends pretty consistently in January. So I'm excited to get back to it. With the holidays, I've been off the LinkedIn Live for a little bit, but I'm excited to get back into the mix. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Next Monday, same time. Make sure if you weren't following me before, follow me now. Then you'll get the notification, and it talks a little bit about, it'll basically every time you can actually now on LinkedIn. I don't know how many of you know this now, but if you go to my profile and you just click on Jake Dunlap and you can literally hit a quick little button. It is where do you call it? I can tell you where it is. There's a little bell. You should see like a little bell, and that'll just send you a notification every time I post or go live. So I usually post once or twice a week. Once or twice a day. Some of you are like, Jake, I wish you would only post once or twice a week, but I'm not. I'm going to keep posting. So again, hopefully it's a good reminder for some of you, a good look forward on, the go forward. Even if you're in the field, you got to start to become a great virtual seller too. So even if you're waiting for the good old days of face-to-face, right? You still have to get great at virtual selling. So hopefully that helps a lot of you out there. We'll see you next Monday. Make sure, share this with your audience, share this with the people on your sales team if they're starting to think about different ways to engage. And I hope this helps some of you out there. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week, everybody.